Chapter 3. I'd make a great class president. Ben waved the remote at the TV set and let it do its magic. At my house, we have a very strict TV watching policy. You can only watch public television cartoons, and then you can only watch the ones made for 4-year-olds. At Ben's house, you can choose from about 50 different cartoon networks, and on every single one, someone is always either saying something really sarcastic or shooting some sort of computerized gizmo that makes everything explode. It's awesome. Who told you you'd make a great class president? I asked. My dad did, Ben said. He called last night. He thinks I should start building my resume. Fourth graders don't have resumes, I said. Ben wagged his finger at me. Fourth graders who aren't thinking about the future don't have resumes. My dad says it's never too early to start thinking about the future. I flopped down on the couch. Ben's dad is a very tricky subject, and not one you should tackle while you're standing up. In my opinion, there are two not so great things about Ben's dad. One, he lives all the way in Seattle, Washington, since he and Ben's mom are divorced. Because he lives so far away, it's hard for him to come visit, and every once in a while, Ben gets this dark, scowly look on his face, which means he's missing his dad, and you better just leave him alone. The second not so great thing about Ben's dad is that he is always trying to change who Ben is. He doesn't think boys should be artists. He tells Ben that he's going to have to change his mind about spending the rest of his life drawing comic books. If you take comic book drawing away from Ben, all you have is a person who sits there and watches TV in his pajamas. You know, if you become class president, you'll have to go to a lot of long, boring meetings with Principal Patino, I said. And somebody like Stacy Wyndham will probably be vice president, and you'll have to call her on the phone every day to discuss class business. You will spend your entire life talking about school and thinking about school. You'll probably end up living at school. Ben clicked off the TV and looked at me. His face was a very pale shade of green. I've never heard of a kid having to live at school, he said. That's what happened last year, I told him. It was a big lie, but I was desperate. You didn't go to our school then, so you wouldn't know about it, but all the class presidents ended up sleeping in the nurse's office practically every night. I could see Ben was beginning to have second thoughts about running for class president. I sank back into the couch and smiled. My work was done. Or maybe not. I'll just pass a law saying class presidents never have to stay after school, even if they get in trouble. It will be the big privilege of the class president to be able to leave school property whenever he wants to. Ben smiled and clicked the TV back on. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, like that's a law Mrs. Patino will approve in 2 seconds flat. Ben shrugged. The president makes the rules. What can I say? I could see this battle would not be won in an afternoon. I decided to turn my attention to mold. Scientifically speaking, there are few things in the world more interesting than mold. Here's what I already knew, other than that mold is really gross in a cool kind of way. Number 1, mold is a fungus. A fungus is a single-celled organism that grows into colonies of cells that become molds, mushrooms, and other cool stuff. Even though mold grows, it is not a plant or an animal. One way you know that is that no one wants it for a pet, and nobody wants to grow it in their garden either. Mold is everywhere. All you need is moisture, air, and stuff that mold likes to eat. If you look inside my fridge, you will see that mold really, really likes cheese. But it likes other stuff too, like oranges that have been sitting out in a bowl on the kitchen table for a long time, and an old shoebox that maybe you one time tried to make sail like a boat in your bathtub, and then stuffed into the cabinet under the bathroom sink when you heard your mom coming upstairs. Mold likes wet stuff a lot. The way mold gets places is by sending out spores, which are kind of like seeds. If it is a dry kind of mold, the wind will blow its spores around for it. If it's a wet kind of mold, sometimes animals or insects will move it. Slime molds, some of nature's most awesome organisms, move by sliming stuff. They just keep stretching along, eating anything in their path. If you look at mold under a microscope, it looks a lot like spaghetti. Don't eat it. The mold that grows in your shower is called mildew. It is there because mold likes moisture. Ben's shower is very, very moist. When I pulled back the shower curtain, it was like I was interrupting a mildew party. Mildew was creeping up and down the walls in the shower curtain, and it was hanging around the drain like it couldn't wait for somebody to turn on some more water. The mildew was black and spotty and really, really cool looking. In fact, it was so cool looking, it occurred to me that I didn't actually want to get rid of it. This was a problem. I guess we probably couldn't talk your mom into learning to live with mold, could we? I asked Ben. Ben shook his head. No way. She hates it. If she really hated it, she'd get rid of it, I pointed out. She doesn't have time, and whenever she decides she's going to clean out the shower, it turns out she doesn't have the right supplies. It's a bad situation. But the mildew isn't actually hurting anything, I said. Maybe if she tried to look at it in a more positive way, she wouldn't mind it so much. Maybe she could try to think of it as a sort of plant or something. It's slimy, Ben said. It's gross and slimy. And you're pretty crazy if you think you're going to convince my mom to like it. I knew Ben was right, but I also knew that deep down inside, I wasn't a mold killer. I like mold. I think it's one of the most interesting things in the universe. If I start thinking about it, I come up with all sorts of fascinating questions like, is there mold in our outer space? What is mold's favorite food? Does it like chocolate pudding cups as much as I do? The more I thought about it, the more I knew I didn't want to rid the world of mold. What I really wanted was more mold. I wanted other people to be as interested in mold as I was, so I'd have someone to discuss mold with. Maybe I should start a mold appreciation society or a club for mold lovers. I could be the president and Ben could be vice president, if I could ever get him to like mold too. Then we'd both have something to put on our resumes.